What's poppin', guys? This is Housecat MMA, and right now I'm going to be going over my top 5 welterweight GOATs in the UFC. But before I get into all that, if you would just take about a second to like and subscribe, I would appreciate that a lot. Now, obviously, number 1 on this list is George Rush St. Pierre. George St. Pierre came into the UFC at 5-0. Won his debut against Karo Parisian. Won his second fight in the UFC against Jay Haran. He then fights MattHughes for the vacant welterweight title, loses, gets himself back into title contention, beats MattHughes for the title, loses it right away to Matt Serra, and then ends up finding himself in an interim title bout against MattHughes, beats MattHughes again, and then he gets the belt back against Matt Serra, which I think is the most dominant performance in which a champion was dethroned in UFC history. He then defends against John Fitch, BJ Penn, Thiago Alves, Dan Hardy, Josh Koscheck, Jake Shields, Carlos Condit, Nick Diaz, Johnny Hendricks. So that's 9 title defenses. Okay, nobody at welterweight's done that, and he avenged both of his losses to Matt Serra and MattHughes. And if you watch those fights, those were winnable fights for him. He was 2 obvious zigs when he should have zagged away from being undefeated. So he's number 1. Number 2 is Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman got the belt from Tyron Woodley in either 2018 or 2019. And he defended the belt against Colby Covington twice, against Jorge Masvidal twice, and against Gilbert Burns. He won his first 15 fights in the UFC. He was winning against Leon Edwards until Leon Edwards kicked him in the head. And he had a pretty competitive fight with Khamzat Chimaev, and he just got done beating Joaquin Buckley pretty good a few months ago. So I don't think we've heard the last out of Kamaru Usman as far as title fights are concerned. Now, MattHughes is number 3. MattHughes in all got 8 title defenses. He won the belt off of Carlos Newton, defended it 5 times against, guys like Frank Trigg, Sean Shirk, and then he loses it to BJ Penn. He regains it when he fought George St. Pierre the first time for the vacant belt. And then he defended it 3 times against Joe Riggs and Frank Trigg and somebody else. And just on sheer numbers, that puts him at number 3. I think Kamaru Usman was a little more dominant, but it was close between those two on who's going to be 2 and who's going to be 3. Something told me that Kamaru Usman needed to be number 2 as opposed to MattHughes. Number 4 is Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley got the belt in 2016 against Robbie Lawler and defends against Stephen Thompson, Damian Maia, and Darren Till. He retained it once because he fought Stephen Thompson to a draw, and then they rematched, and then he ended up beating Stephen Thompson. And that was a point in time where, like 2015 to 2017, Stephen Thompson was on his shit. So he beat a Stephen Thompson that was on his shit twice, and he whipped the dog shit out of Darren Till. Had a very dominant performance against Damian Maia. So he had a rocky end to his career, but I think his title reign was pretty good. And number 5 is Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler got the belt off of Johnny Hendricks in a rematch. Him and Johnny Hendricks fought one time, and Johnny Hendricks won that one. And then they rematched, and Robbie got the nod in that one. And what was weird about Robbie Lawler is he wasn't exactly a guy anybody was accusing of being a future champion at the beginning of his career. Like, he got knocked out by Nick Diaz. He lost to Jake Shields. Like, he just seemed like a scrapper that if you got the fight where if you could get him out of the scrap and fight him on, technicalities, you were probably going to win. But all of a sudden, in his second UFC run, he fought Josh Koscheck. And I was like, in my head, I was like, because in 2013, people thought Koscheck was still good. And I was like, oh man, Koscheck's probably going to win this one. And knocks out Koscheck. But the thing about Lawler is he always had a puncher's chance. So you could kind of boil it down to that. Like, okay, you hit him really hard in the head and put him away. And then he beats Bobby Volker. Like, okay. And then he fought Rory McDonald in November of 2013 and beat him by split decision. And that's when I was kind of like, oh shit. Like, Robbie ain't fucking around. And I was a Hendricks guy, so when he fought Hendricks for the first time, I was glad Hendricks won. And then he got the belt in their rematch. And then he defended against Rory McDonald, and his second fight with Rory McDonald in 2015 at UFC 189 is, in my opinion, the best fight in UFC history. I mean, there's a couple of other fights that are arguable, like Doo Ho Choi versus Cub Swanson, or the first fight between Alexander Gustafsson and John Jones. But just the intensity of it and just some moments in that fight, I think his rematch with Rory McDonald was the best fight of all time. Knocked Rory McDonald out in the 5th round in that fight, and then he defended against Carlos Condit, and then he ended up losing it to Tyron Woodley. But I think his run before he won the title and the fights he took part in after he won the title are what gets him in the number 5 spot in top 5 welterweight goats. So that's all I have on that. Hopefully this was very informative. This is House Cat MMA, and I'll catch y'all later.